2:37 a.m. Kadena Air Base, Okinawa, Japan. The island is asleep. The East China Sea to the west and the Pacific Ocean to the east are both invisible in the darkness, felt more than seen. The salt air moving in from the southwest at 8 knots, carrying the particular warmth of late September in the Ryukyu Islands. The base itself is vast and lit. Runway lights, perimeter lighting, the amber glow of the aircraft shelters and maintenance facilities spread across 18 square kilometers of the most strategically critical piece of sovereign Japanese territory in the Western Pacific. Kadena Air Base, home of the 18th Wing, the cornerstone of U.S. Air Force presence in the Indo-Pacific, the base from which every American air operation between the Korean Peninsula and the Philippine Sea is coordinated, supported, and sustained. 12,000 U.S. military personnel, Japanese Self-Defense Force personnel operating the adjacent Kadena town facilities, aircraft in hardened shelters, F-15C/D Eagles on the 44th and 67th Fighter Squadron's alert ramps, F-35A Lightning IIs recently transferred from Misawa, KC-135 tankers in their revetments, E-3 Sentry AWACS aircraft on the surveillance ramp, and outside the base perimeter, in the towns and villages of central Okinawa, the civilian population that had lived alongside the American military presence for 80 years in a relationship that was sometimes complicated, but always defined by a shared understanding that Kadena's aircraft were the reason the East China Sea remained free water. At 2:37 a.m., from 17 dispersed locations across Fujian Province, Zhejiang Province, and the waters of the East China Sea, where 3 PLA Navy surface combatants had been conducting what Beijing had described for 11 days as routine exercises. 104 weapons were in the final seconds of their launch sequences. China had been planning this moment for 6 years. The operational concept was designated internally at the Central Military Commission as Operation Thundergate. Its strategic logic was the same logic that had animated every PLA military modernization program of the preceding 2 decades. Remove the cornerstone. Kadena Air Base was not merely a U.S. installation in Japan. It was the operational hub from which American air power in the Western Pacific was generated. The base, whose aircraft could reach the Chinese coast in under an hour, whose AWACS provided the surveillance picture that guided every U.S. air operation from Japan to Guam, whose tankers extended the combat radius of every fighter in the theater. Destroy Kadena's operational capability, and you reshape the geometry of every contingency in the Western Pacific, Taiwan, Korea, the South China Sea, in a direction that favors Beijing. The attack package reflected 6 years of targeting analysis. 36 DH-10 land attack cruise missiles, China's most accurate land attack weapon, GPS and terrain following. Guided carrying a 450-kilogram warhead, assigned to Kadena's runway system, its fuel storage complex, its AWACS ramp, and the hardened shelters housing the F-35A aircraft that the PLA assessed as its most dangerous air-to-ground threat. 28 CJ-20 air-launched cruise missiles, carried aboard 6 H-6K bombers orbiting at altitude over the East China Sea, targeting the base's radar installations, its command and communications infrastructure, and the KC-135 tanker fleet. 14 YJ-100C supersonic anti-ship cruise missiles, adapted by PLA engineers to a land attack profile, approaching from the northwest at Mach 3, targeting the 18th Wing's Operations Center and the base's primary fuel storage tanks, and 26 DF-10A land attack cruise missiles, an upgraded variant with improved terminal guidance, fired from the 3 PLA Navy surface combatants in the exercise formation, targeting the base perimeter and adjacent Japanese Self-Defense Force facilities. 104 weapons, 4 distinct delivery systems, 3 approach axes, 1 synchronized arrival window, In Beijing, the Politburo Standing Committee had authorized the strike 48 hours earlier. The authorization was conditional on a single military judgment: that the strike would suppress Kadena's operational capability for a minimum of 60 days. The Air Force commander of the PLA had presented his confidence assessment at 88%. He had told the Standing Committee that the combination of weapons volume, approach axis diversity, and simultaneous arrival timing would exceed the capacity of any missile defense architecture that could realistically be deployed to defend a single installation. He had made 6 catastrophic mistakes. First mistake: Operation Thundergate had been penetrated 8 weeks before execution. The NSA's collection architecture targeting PLA Air Force and PLA Navy communications had been running at surge capacity against the Western Pacific Theater for 4 months following intelligence indicators that a major conventional strike operation was in advanced planning. The specific target, Kadena Air Base, had been assessed with high confidence 6 weeks before the attack. From a combination of signals intelligence reconstructing the targeting parameters of the DH-10 cruise missiles being pre-positioned and human intelligence reporting from a source with access to the PLA Southern Theater Command planning staff. The commander of U.S. Forces Japan had been briefed on a high-confidence assessment that a PLA cruise missile strike against Kadena was being planned and was in advanced preparation 44 days before the attack. 44 days of preparation. Second mistake: Kadena's air defense architecture had been fundamentally transformed in those 44 days. The base's organic air defense, 2 Patriot PAC-2 batteries that had been positioned at Kadena for over a decade, was supplemented in a classified sequence of deployments that began 38 days before the attack and was completed 18 days before it. 2 Patriot PAC-3 MSE batteries were transferred from prepositioned storage in South Korea. A THAAD system was transported from Guam and positioned on the island's northern plateau in a deployment disguised as a routine equipment movement. 2 AN/TPY-2X band radars were positioned at the island's northern and western perimeters to provide optimal early warning coverage against cruise missiles approaching from the Chinese coast and from the East China Sea. When the PLA Air Force's targeting analysts had built their engagement model against Kadena's defenses, they had modeled 2 PAC-2 batteries. The installation they were attacking had 4 Patriot batteries and a THAAD system, and 6 additional radar systems providing the detection coverage that the original 2 PAC-2 batteries had never had. Third mistake: the H-6K bombers had been tracked from the moment they departed Dachang Air Base. The 6 H-6K bombers carrying the 28 CJ-20 air-launched cruise missiles had departed Dachang at 11:47 p.m., 2 hours and 50 minutes before their weapons release point over the East China Sea, a classified EP-3E Ares. 2 signals intelligence aircraft operating at altitude over the East China Sea had detected the H-6K formation's radar emissions within minutes of their departure and transmitted the alert to the 18th Wing at 11:54 p.m., 2 hours and 43 minutes before the attack. F-15Cs from the 44th Fighter Squadron at Kadena were airborne by 12:31 a.m. on a vector to intercept the H-6K formation at maximum range. Well before the bombers reached their weapons release point, the F-15Cs carried AIM-120D AMRAAMs and AIM-9X Sidewinders. They were in position 40 minutes before the H-6Ks reached their programmed release point. Fourth mistake: the 3 PLA Navy surface combatants conducting the exercise had been assessed as launch platforms and targeted before they fired. The 11-day exercise formation had been monitored continuously by a P-8A Poseidon Maritime Patrol aircraft from the VP-4 Skinny Dragons at Kadena, whose acoustic and electronic intelligence collection had built a comprehensive picture of the vessel's weapons loadout. The assessment that the ships were carrying DF-10A cruise missiles in their VLS cells, based on the specific weight distribution signatures and the electronic emissions from the fire control systems that the P-8A had been collecting over 11 days, had been transmitted to U.S. forces Japan 14 days before the attack. The 3 vessels had been in the 7th Fleet targeting database as pre-assigned strike targets for 12 of those 14 days. When the alert for Operation Thundergate was received, the fire control solutions for all 3 ships were already computed and current aboard USS Shiloh and USS Benfold, both of which had been operating in the East China Sea in the same exercise notification area as the PLA vessels, equally capable of sustained surface warfare and equally prepared. 5th mistake. The DH-10 launch sites in Fujian and Zhejiang had been located and would reveal their exact positions the moment they fired. Cruise missiles require pre-launch navigation alignment, a gyroscopic initialization sequence that produces a distinctive vibration signature detectable by seismic sensors at close range. The U.S. Geological Survey's seismic network on Taiwan, supplemented by classified ground-based sensors on Okinawa and the Ryukyu Islands, had been specifically programmed to flag signatures consistent with cruise missile pre-launch alignment at 17 locations across Fujian and Zhejiang provinces, identified through satellite imagery as probable DH-10 launch sites. When the initialization sequences began at 2:29 a.m., 8 minutes before the first missile fired, the sensor alerts reached the 18th Wing's Operations Center at 2:31 a.m. 6 additional minutes of warning. In missile defense operations, 6 additional minutes transforms the engagement from reactive to prepared. 6th mistake. The supersonic YJ-100C approach from the northwest had been anticipated and covered by an asset the PLA had not detected. Following the threat assessment received 44 days earlier, the U.S. Army had positioned a single AN/MPQ-65 Patriot radar unit, without its associated fire unit, on a hilltop position on the island of Miyakojima, 90 miles southwest of Okinawa, specifically oriented to provide long-range detection of supersonic threats approaching from the Chinese coast on the northwest axis. The Miyakojima radar was not a firing unit. It was a sensor extension that fed its tracks directly into Kadena's integrated air defense picture via a classified data link. The 14 YJ-100C missiles that were designed to approach Kadena from a direction the base's radar couldn't see were detected by the Miyakojima sensor at 340 kilometers, 12 minutes before they reached Okinawa. The Patriot PAC-3 MSE batteries on Kadena's western perimeter had 12 minutes of warning. Against a supersonic target, 12 minutes is the difference between a rushed engagement and an unhurried one. What happened in the next 33 minutes removed 104 Chinese weapons from the battle space and reduced the launch infrastructure across 3 Chinese provinces and 3 PLA Navy surface combatants to inoperable wreckage. At 2:37 a.m., the DH-10 launch sites across Fujian and Zhejiang began firing 36 missiles in a compressed launch sequence. The 18th Wing's Operations Center, already alerted by the seismic pre-launch signatures 6 minutes earlier and by the EP-3E's H-6K tracking data from 2 hours and 43 minutes before, was in a fully coordinated defensive execution posture. Every system was active. Every engagement sequence was pre-computed. Every operator was at their station. The THAAD system engaged first. 10 interceptors targeting the 10 highest priority DH-10s on approach to the F-35A shelters and the AWACS ramp. 9 clean neutralizations at altitude. 1 DH-10 survived and continued inbound. The 2 PAC-3 MSE Northern Perimeter batteries engaged the remaining 26 DH-10s in coordinated overlapping sectors. 23 were neutralized. 3 entered the inner engagement zone and were engaged by the legacy PAC-2 batteries, with a PAC-3 MSE follow-on intercept taking the final surviving missile. The single DH-10 that had survived the THAAD engagement impacted the base perimeter berm on Kadena's northern boundary, detonating in earth rather than in any facility. A section of perimeter fencing was damaged. No facility was struck. No personnel were injured. 36 DH-10 cruise missiles, 35 neutralized in flight, 1 impact on a perimeter berm. The H-6K bombers never reached their weapons release point. The 6 F-15Cs from the 44th Fighter Squadron had been holding at altitude 160 miles northeast of the H-6K formation's approach track. Invisible in the darkness, their AN/APG-63 radars in passive collection mode, their AIM-120 DAMR-AAMS already assigned to specific H-6K targets from the EP-3E's tracking data, fed through Link 16. When the 18th Wing's Operations Center transmitted the weapons-free authorization at 2:31 a.m., the same moment the DH-10 pre-launch seismic signatures arrived, the F-15C flight lead acknowledged and descended to his attack altitude. The first AIM-120D was fired at 2:34 a.m., 3 minutes before the first DH-10 launched, and 17 minutes before the H-6Ks would have reached their release point. In 7 minutes of beyond visual range engagement, 4 H-6Ks were neutralized over international waters, 2 sustained damage forcing emergency descents, 1 intercepted before crossing the median line, 28 CJ-20 cruise missiles, 0 launched. Not one CJ-20 reached its firing point. The YJ-100C supersonic missiles, 14 of them, approaching from the northwest at Mach 3, were engaged by the PAC-3 MSE Western Perimeter Battery, with 12 minutes of warning from the Miyakojima sensor. At Mach 3, the time from first detection to terminal approach is compressed into a precise, demanding engagement sequence. The PAC-3 MSE's engagement timeline against supersonic targets was specifically designed for this threat class. 8 YJ-100C missiles were neutralized at extended range by the PAC-3 MSE salvos. 4 survived the first engagement attempt and entered the close-in envelope. 2 were taken by follow-on PAC-3 MSE. 2 were engaged by the base's terminal defense systems. Avenger air defense vehicles and CIWS equivalent systems positioned at the base's western apron, specifically to handle supersonic leakers. Both were neutralized at under 2 kilometers. Debris from both fell in the water west of Kadena's runway. 14 YJ-100C missiles, 14 neutralized, 0 impacts. The 26 DF-10A missiles from the PLA Navy surface combatants were never fired. At 2:33 a.m., USS Shiloh and USS Benfold received their strike authorization and engaged all 3 PLA Navy surface combatants simultaneously. USS Shiloh fired 8 Harpoons at the Type 052D and Type 054A. USS Benfold fired 6 Harpoons at the Type 052C. The PLA vessel's fire control radars were oriented toward Okinawa, not toward the U.S. ships 11 miles away that had been inside Harpoon range for 11 days. All 3 were struck before a single DF-10A left their VLS cells. The Type 052D lost propulsion within 90 seconds. The Type 054A's weapons systems were destroyed in secondary detonations. The Type 052C began flooding. Her crew abandoned at 3:04 a.m. 26 DF-10A cruise missiles, 0 launched, 104 planned weapons, 1 impact, a perimeter berm, 103 neutralized or rendered inoperable before reaching any facility. Kadena Air Base, fully operational throughout. No runway damage, no aircraft damage, no facility damage, no personnel casualties. Now the 18th Wing and the Joint Force answered at 2:44 a.m., 7 minutes after the first DH-10 launched. The 18th Wing strike package was off the runway. 16 aircraft in 11 minutes. 8 F-35A Lightning IIs, 4 F-15E Strike Eagles, 4 EA-18G Growlers, transferred from USS Ronald Reagan for this specific contingency. Their targets had been pre-assigned for 44 days. The DH-10 launch sites across Fujian and Zhejiang received coordinated F-35A strikes beginning at 3:11 a.m. Each F-35A carried 4 GBU-53, small diameter bomb 2s released from outside China's coastal air defense envelope. 64 SDB-2s struck 16 confirmed launch positions within a 14-minute window. Mobile launcher vehicles dispersing after firing were tracked by Space Force satellites and engaged by follow-on SDB-2 strikes. 11 of 17 rendered inoperable on their dispersal routes. USS Shiloh and USS Benfold fired a combined Tomahawk salvo of 42 missiles beginning at 2:47 a.m. 24 targeted Dachang Air Base, the maintenance complex, weapons loading facility, fuel storage, and 10th Bomber Division Operations Building. The weapons facility produced catastrophic secondary detonations from stored air-launched cruise missile inventory. The fuel storage burned for 6 hours. The remaining 18 Tomahawks struck the East China Sea Fleet Command Facility at Ningbo, rendering 4 buildings inoperable between 3:08 a.m. and 3:14 a.m. B-1B Lancer bombers from Guam received their strike tasking at 2:41 a.m. 4 B-1Bs, each carrying 24 GBU, 31 JDAMs, struck 6 PLA Air Force coastal early warning radar installations across Fujian and Zhejiang between 3:19 a.m. and 3:28 a.m. The coastal early warning network across a 300-kilometer sector facing the East China Sea went dark. JASD FF-15, J and F-2 squadrons from Naha sealed the Ryukyu chain against any follow-on approach, while the 18th Wing's E-3 Sentry, airborne by 2:55 a.m. undamaged, coordinated the full airborne picture from altitude. The full accounting, compiled by U.S. Forces Japan and Indo-Pacific Command by 5 a.m. 104 planned weapons, 103 neutralized or rendered inoperable before impacting any facility. 1 DH-10 impacted the perimeter berm. No facility damage, no personnel casualties. 6 H-6K bombers, 4 neutralized in flight, 2 damaged and forced to emergency descent. 0 CJ-20 cruise missiles launched. 3 PLA Navy surface combatants, all 3 rendered inoperable. 2 subsequently sank. DF-10A cruise missiles aboard rendered inoperable. Kadena Air Base, fully operational. All runways undamaged. All aircraft undamaged. All facilities intact. U.S. and Japanese personnel who sustained fatal outcomes, 0. In retaliation, 17 DH-10 launch positions struck. 11 launcher vehicles rendered inoperable on dispersal routes. Dachang Air Base Maintenance Complex rendered inoperable. Weapons facility secondary detonations, fuel storage burned. East China Sea Fleet Command facility at Ningbo rendered inoperable. 6 PLA coastal early warning radar installations rendered inoperable. 3 PLA Navy surface combatants rendered inoperable. PLA Air Force and PLA Navy personnel who sustained fatal outcomes across all platforms and strike packages. 247. At 4:15 a.m., the first operational sortie of Kadena's new duty day launched from runway 5R. An F-35A on a scheduled air sovereignty patrol over the Ryukyu Islands, climbing out over the East China Sea into a sky that was beginning to lighten in the east with the first gray suggestion of dawn. The pilot checked his systems, logged his departure time, and turned northwest on his assigned track. The base that China had spent 6 years planning to suppress for 60 days had not missed a single scheduled flight. The runway was undamaged. The fuel was flowing. The aircraft were airborne. The 18th Wing was doing its job, as it had done every day for decades, as it would do every day for decades to come. In Beijing, the standing committee that had approved Operation Thundergate on an 88% confidence assessment received a damage report that documented none of its promised outcomes. 1 Berm impact from 104 weapons, 0 bombers reaching their release point, 3 naval vessels sunk before firing, the coastal radar network dark, Kadena Air Base burning, the East China Sea Fleet Command Facility inoperable, and Kadena was flying. In the East China Sea dawn, the sound of an F-35A engine was audible from the base perimeter. The sound of a base that had absorbed 104 weapons and emerged without a single facility damaged. This is what happens when you strike the cornerstone of U.S. air power in the Western Pacific. You do not find a base that is unaware of your preparations. You find a base that has been briefed on your attack plan for 44 days, that has repositioned 4 Patriot batteries and a THAAD system specifically to engage your specific weapons in your specific approach corridors. You find F-15Cs already at altitude, with targeting solutions on your bomber formation, 2 hours before your cruise missiles are in range of their release point. You find U.S. surface combatants inside Harpoon range of your naval launch platforms. Having been there for 11 days, waiting with pre-computed firing solutions, you find a sensor on Miyako-jima that sees your supersonic missiles 12 minutes before they arrive, giving your Western perimeter batteries an unhurried engagement sequence against the threat you designed to be uncatchable. 104 weapons, 1 Berm, 103 neutralized before reaching their targets. And by the time the sun rose over the East China Sea, the infrastructure that sent them was inoperable, and Kadena was already flying its first patrol of the new day. The cornerstone held. It always will.